up, guys? I'm Cam Bird, and you're watching Metal Robot Reviews.
Welcome to the program. This is Metal Robot Reviews.
Welcome to the Metal Robot Reviews channel. I'm your host, Tom McKay, and today we are sitting down with Cam Bird, the solo artist from Australia. How you doing today?
Good, man. It's nice and early for me. Thanks for jumping on at this time. It's like 7 a.m. for me, which isn't very rock and roll, but, you know, it's like we're dealing, man. I've got a coffee in hand, and we are good to go.
Perfect. That's great. That's great. So you've been in the metal scene for a few years now, for quite some time, having tried your hand in a few different bands, and now you're trying your hand at being a solo artist, and have been for quite some time. So what led you to the point where you're like, I want to make my own music?
Well, I was always the kind of driving force in all the bands that I was in, right? So, like, I would do most of the writing. I would be involved with most of the production, not so much the engineering side, more the playing side, kind of in the chair with, like, whatever, guitar parts, doubling up, lead guitar stuff, backing vocals, all of this. I got to the point with bands where I was like, man, like, I want complete, like, artistic freedom and control, right? Like, because there's politics with bands. It's like a five-way marriage at times. It can get pretty nasty and sort of interesting. Really, the whole purpose behind the Cam Bird thing was to kind of take off those chains and really just start to express myself as fully as I can as an artist. So I stepped on the mic. It was a little bit shaky at first, like self-admit that. But I learned to basically kind of sing on the go and really step into that frontman role as well as the kind of guitar duties and stuff like that. And then I feel like everything really came together with my latest album, which was where I sat in the producer's chair and actually did all of that myself for the first time, which was really cool. It just gave me complete artistic control and freedom and the ability to express myself in a really powerful way. So that's the reason why I've kind of gone down the solo route, which I know is unusual in the metal realm, man.
No, you'd be surprised. There are plenty of people going the solo route for that specific reason. They want to avoid the polygamy of the five-way marriage of bands. I mean,
fun.
3 is already chaotic enough. 5 is just pushing it. But one of the bands that I'd argue you've had prominence in is the previous one, Create Destroy. How did you find yourself in that band?
There was so we have like Craigslist over here, like a similar sort of thing. I think it was like Gumtree or something at the time. This is going back to like 2008 or something, man, a long time ago. But basically, I got to the point where I wrote this kind of instrumental demo album, right? I had like 8 or 9 tracks there. And I was like, I'm going to use this to attract in some musicians because I'd been in other bands before that and I wanted to push myself. And that's my belief with everything is like I'm always trying to up level throughout every stage of my career. So I got to the point where I had this kind of like demo thing and then I saw this ad and these guys wanted a guitarist. So I got in touch with them and look, we kind of clicked straight away. I went to this house in a suburb way outside of Melbourne called Baronia, and that became our band house, right? It was pretty wild. We'd spend most of our weekends there. But I met the guys, and then Betty was the guitarist, and we just clicked, and that was the main kind of thing. It was a very guitar riff-driven band. It was sort of more death metal. From that point, we just kind of grew from there, man. I think we were together for maybe 4 or 5 years, and you know, it imploded in the end, but we did some cool stuff along the way. We did a Japanese tour. We, you know, did some cool things supporting the Crown over there and had some pretty cool experiences along the way as well.
Do you still talk with the members of the band? Like, are you guys still in touch?
With Betty, the guitarist, yes. The other guys, not so much. Things like as bands can get sometimes, it can get a bit, you know, the kind of marriage can split. So that happened with that band, man. It's like when you get to different levels, the different pressures start to come in and that can, you know, kind of push the cracks into like voids. So that happened.
Going back to what you were talking about before about the band imploding, basically. Yeah, I did do some digging into Create Destroy, and the band called it quits around 2014 due to standard reasons. Life comes up and it's basically like get a real job, which whatever the fuck that means. Do you think if you were still in the band, like as far as I know, did you leave before that whole thing imploded?
I did, man. Yes. The other guys wanted to slow down a bit. I wanted to keep going. I was a bullet train man, probably too much of a bullet train. I was just sort of young, red-blooded, ready to go. And I actually started up another band at the time and was kind of playing with other musicians. I don't think that really helped the tension in hindsight, right? That kind of a move.
Well, do you think if you were still in the band when that happened, do you think that you would have met a similar fate with the rest of the guys?
Yeah, I think so, man. Like, I think every project has a shelf life. It's just the successful ones, you know, because there's money involved. But even those, right, like they go through their periods. Like you're wearing a Metallica shirt. Look at what happened to those guys around, you know, the 2000s. They almost broke up. Even James is having trouble now, right? Like, you know, and I think it's awesome. He's taking care of his mental health. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, like System of a Down, another big sort of band that's a favorite of mine. Like there's been talk for 12 years of those guys getting back together. Right? It's not going to happen, probably. So, you know, every project just has a shelf life, man. And that's something that I've just come to recognize, I guess, as I've gotten a bit older and accept with that.
System of a Down, I got to agree with, they're not going to come back anytime soon. Let's be real here. They've been pushing that. We've got so much more material. We've got new album coming soon for 12 years. By this point,
man, one dude sitting there behind the computer trying to push it, trying to make it happen, and the rest of them are like, dude, give up.
The rest of them are just on Twitter like, we got new album coming. How's it coming? I don't know. Okay, cool. Your sound is said to be a mixture of a variety of different styles, from thrash metal like Metallica and Trivium, if you want to classify them under that umbrella, some prog elements like Opeth, but also, and this one I thought was very interesting, grunge, so like Nirvana, Alice in Chains, and a few others mixed in. That is actually kind of surprising, given that the music I heard specifically with The Devil's Hands, your recent single, in that it's actually cohesive. There's so many styles, it's so easy to lose track of them all and just make it like a Frankenstein's monster type of a song. But you managed to get them all to work together. How the fuck did you manage to do that?
Dude, I don't know. It's like when I just write something, I just try and it's like a melting pot, right? Like a good chef will just chuck in heaps of ingredients and stir it all together and it comes out, right? Like somehow. It's the exact same thing with me, of like the grunge influence in particular mainly comes from me as a vocalist. I'm just really inspired by what a lot of those guys were doing back in the 90s. Alice in Chains, like Lane Staley, man, right up there for me. Even Soundgarden, some of those guys, they just wrote amazing songs, had amazing vocal lines. Pearl Jam, another one. And that's something that I really believe is kind of like gone from metal in particular, and I wanted to bring it back into it, of like this really kind of expressive, like beautiful emotional vocal work. I wanted to bring that back in with all the awesome stuff of metal, you know, the riffing, the thrashing, the kind of, you know, the double kicking, like all that kind of madness, and just figure out a way how to fit it all together, you know, of course with some shred as well.
You got to get some shred in there. All right. So, and you mentioned like this is like in the promos and as well on the bio of your Facebook page, which you can veto out of this question if you feel like it, that on the precipice of taking your own life, you put on the Unnamed Feeling by Metallica, and it gave you purpose. Now, can you tell me what aspects of the song gave you this purpose?
Yeah, like the ability to connect to James, right? Before that moment, I felt really lost and just like meaningless, right, in life, and kind of questioning my purpose and everything like that, right? I think a lot of people go through that. And then I had this moment where I'm like listening to this song and it spoke to me in such a huge way, literally at like the soul level, where I was like, holy shit, like, excuse me, holy hell. There's someone on the other side of the planet who's feeling the exact same way that I am, and they've put it into this kind of like format of this just music. It was a very angry, angsty song. It was awesome. And it just blew me away, man. It gave me that like a moment of I'm not alone. That for me was a very crystallizing moment with music, where I'm like, man, like maybe I can do that too, because music's really shaped and saved my life in a big way. That's what I want to pass forward for other people, you know, because there are people struggling out there, you know, with different things. And that's what music is all about, is about healing, helping that, and connecting people and making them feel freaking awesome.
Well, what made you want to pick that song to play in that moment?
Dude, it just came on randomly. I didn't pick it.
Oh, it was,
Yeah.
so
It
it's
was
just, just hit random shuffle button. All of a sudden, hey, this is pretty good.
like, CDs back then and like the old pizza CD thing, right? Kids these days won't know the struggles that we had. It was literally just, I had this like a CD and like a stacker in my car, and then it just random shuffled on, and I was like, whoa.
Going back to what you were talking about of using music as sort of like a best way I can describe it, like a power to change lives. Like, do you feel like you're succeeding in that kind of mission?
Yeah, I do. Like, so I get messages through my social media, at times of just, some amazing people going through stuff, and they'll tell me about it. They'll tell me, similar kind of stories, and that's where it comes full circle for me, and that's where it's very fulfilling. Being an independent artist, it's not easy. Building your own thing, it's not easy, right? I don't think being a musician ever really has been easy, right? Despite what people will tell you about the industry now compared to back then, I don't know, man. But that's what makes it all worthwhile for me, is like when I get a message like that and I, see some dude and he's just like, man, like the lyrics in that song, it really connected with me. It helped me through some tough times. I'm like, awesome. That's what it's all about. That makes me feel pretty fulfilled.
Were there any specific messages that really hit you deep, like in your soul? Like any messages from fans have come your way? Any specific ones?
Yeah, look, there's a guy, and I'll give him a shout out on here. His name's Jacob. He's been an amazing supporter and fan for a very long time, and he went through some pretty rough stuff, with his family. I won't share too much, right? Because it's very personal. But
right, of course.
Yeah, he shared that with me, and just the experience of, some of the songs in particular. I think with him it was Rust and an old song called Garden and the Reaper off of one of my EPs, Flight, that really sort of hit the mark with him, which was amazing, right? Because that's all you can ask for as an artist, is like getting that kind of a thing back where it connects that deeply with someone. It's an awesome feeling.
All right. Well, shout out to Jacob for this huge shout out in the video. Nice. Glad the music helped you. Now, as previously mentioned, Opeth is one of your influences, including the vocals of one McKay Ackerfeld. Now, as an Opeth devotee, I must ask, which vocal styling are you drawing from the most? Like, is it the growls that people will never, ever let you forget about? Or is it the silky smooth cleans of his voice? Which ones are you drawing most from?
Look, Opeth, for me, I'm a big fan of Blackwater Park and that era, right? Like, I just think the death metal growl that guy had, and it's sad I have to say had now, was just mind-blowing, right? It was so powerful and cool. So that's always been like a benchmark for me of like, kind of just a wicked death metal growl. His new vocal work and everything, and I mean, it's a testament to those guys as musicians, how they can go through that sort of a transformation and pull it off. Plenty of bands have tried and failed, but those guys have succeeded. And if anything, they're going on stronger than ever, which is absolutely amazing.
So In Cauda Venenum is still up there, you'd say? Like the most recent stuff?
It's awesome. Yeah. And don't worry about that. It's still cool. It's just like you've got to adjust a little bit. If you're expecting those growls, you got to put that out of your mind, man.
Oh, you and I, we're minority in that regard, I'd say. So what would you say to anybody who's maybe watching this video right now, who's in your place, people who maybe were at their lowest moments, and or people wanting to help inspire others through music, change, talk, whatever? Like, what would you say to them right now?
Yeah, that it's possible, right? That's the first thing. It's like it takes a lot of work, to be able to do that and to develop your craft into being able to kind of translate a message like that. So, you need to put in the work. That's a big one. Your 10,000 hours, like, believe me, I've spent enough time on the guitar and in the studio and kind of grinding away with very little reward at times, but that's part of the process. So, you really have to understand that and then be driven by something deeper and greater inside yourself. Even if it's not music, like anything is possible, right? It's just, you don't have to live a life that you're not happy with. You don't have to play by others' rules. especially now, like kind of 2020, right? With the internet, the way everything's set up, you can actually do some pretty cool things out there and sort of structure things your way and have opportunities that we didn't have 10, 20 years ago. You know, sometimes when you actually only have a certain amount of gear and you're actually forced to do something with it, you can get your best results, right? Like you don't need all this biggest fancy, you know, $10 million studio or whatever. Like, you know, even for guys, you don't need a $5,000 camera to jump on YouTube and start blogging or vlogging or like kind of talking about what you want to talk about.
Last question, and then we can wrap things up, okay? So this one is probably the most important question of this entire interview.
Yep.
If you could be any cereal box character, who would you be?
Oh, cereal box, man. Are we talking Australian cereal or are we talking like American cereal?
Anything. I'm sure it's the internet. They'll get it.
All right. The Frosty Tiger, right? Like, I'm not sure if I've got the name right, but the Frosty
Tony?
Flake. You know? Yeah, I don't even know. He's like a little tiger on the thing. Yeah, that's who I'd be.
Okay, then.
Like,
I'm so glad you got that. I was talking with a musician last week. They're from Greece, and they didn't know what the hell I was talking about when I asked the question. If you could be any cereal box character, who would you be?
Any?
Any.
Any what?
that goes down as my toughest question yet, I reckon. Pass the test. Whew, I'm sweating a little bit.
Cameron, thank you so much for sitting down with me over Skype. The new single, The Devil's Hands, is everywhere on streaming services. You can pick it up, Bandcamp, Spotify, I believe, and even Apple Music, all that good stuff. So make sure you check it out. Cameron, anything you want to say to the audience before we all wrap up?
No, just thanks for watching, guys. To the fans and kind of guys that have been supporting me for a couple of years now, thank you. I cannot do it without you guys. And to anyone who is jumping on this and listening to my stuff, I hope you dig it. I hope you enjoy it. You know, I'm just a fellow fan like you guys, and that's really what it's all about. So peace, love, rock and roll, guys.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the mosh pit next time. Have a good night.